Before she runs out, we're going to take questions, and I never tell folks that. I never tell folks I'm running anyway. I have a tendency to get so involved in what I'm doing, and that I don't talk about politics. And I don't want people to think that we're just out here because we're running. We have been doing these expungement forums for at least the last 4 to 5 years, okay? Because it's important. So, and I guess I'm always afraid folks gonna say, well, they only here because they running. No, but we didn't stop doing them either because we were running, all right? Because it's important. Let's start with some questions as to the set aside or state expungements. If you have questions on that. Yes, sir.
I got a question, okay. How long ago was HIDA implemented? So, in other words, if I'm 45 right now and it was 20-something years ago and I got caught with an OWI or suspended license a year ago, but 20 years ago this was in place, how does that play now? I mean, as far as because
the Holmes Youthful Trainee Act is named after Senator David F. Holmes, who was in the state Senate when Coleman Alexander Young was in the state Senate. So you know that goes back a while. That goes back a while. It has been on the books. So it's worth looking into. It's worth looking into.
But you got to be 17 through 20 to get that.
You have to be 17 through 20 on the date of offense in order to have gotten that. But there's still others. There's still diversion, sentence under advisement, and also now we're electing a prosecutor. And if you go to these forums, you may want to ask the prosecutor, are they still allowing or sentence under advisement? Are they willing to work with people on expungements, especially if you need to go back and have, you know, the domestic violence drop down to something else that might qualify? The prosecutor has to agree on those if you want to make those types of changes.
I had a situation back in 76 or 77. I was a teenager at the time, but it was in Highland Park. Nobody could seem to find a record, but they won't, you know, I had been getting a clearance since 77, and now all of a sudden I had went for a CCW and they said I got a felony from Highland Park from 70, I think it was 76.
You need to come down to Frank Murphy, Hall of Justice. Give them your name, your birth date. They will go into the computer and they will search for the file. It should be on the computer.
I got a letter from them saying they couldn't find it. And when I talked to the man at the board for CCW, and don't get me wrong, I seen him give a couple other guys their file number, told me I was wasting his time to get on up out of there. You know, wouldn't give me a case number. I got the paper right here, you know, from the file, from the deputy of the clerk.
Are you sure okay, well, I guess number one, even if it may have been, you may have gotten a higher, which means it would have a sentence. If you were up in the right age group, you may have been sentenced under HIDA, in which case your file would be sealed. So you may need to talk with an attorney, show them those papers, and have them investigate the matter further. There are several attorneys who assist people who are trying to get their CCWs, even with a felony conviction, have had some success. But you may need to have an attorney, because it sounds like if they cannot find a file for you, that file may have been sealed, which means your sentencing may not have resulted in a felony conviction. You may be one of the ones who did benefit from HIDA, as we call it.
So if that happens, your record is sealed, but it's sealed to the public. The gun board still is finding that. So when you go to the court to find the record, you can't, because it's sealed. Gary jumped. That's probably what's happening there, and you have to re-petition the gun board and raise that very issue, because they should not be holding that against you if you got HIDA. But
see, when they seal the record, it's still available to policing authorities. It's still available to the military. It's still available to the courts. Because sometimes they, you know, they go back and they look at how many offenses you have, if you got to be sentenced again. Some of these things are taken into consideration, but the general public, when you go try to get into an apartment, try to get a job, try to get financial aid, they're not able to get it. The two attorneys that I know that are doing those gun board issues are Terry Johnson and Gary Jones. You know another?
What was your names again, please?
Terry Johnson, he's out of Inkster.
Alicia Coleman, I do some of that.
Gary Jones, he's in Detroit, and Alicia Coleman.
Delisha.
Right. Delisha Coleman. And judges are not supposed to certify the performance of any attorney, and I am not doing so here. I'm simply providing this information, and so that you will have it available to you. This is not an endorsement of any individual in any capacity whatsoever.
Now you say that's a hidden or sealed?
It's sealed. When it's sealed, sometimes, okay, I've had some folks who are trying to get into senior citizen apartments, and they have a felony conviction, so they can't get into a senior apartment. All right. If it's sealed, the people who are doing the background check in terms of trying to get into, say, a senior apartment, it's not available to the general public. But if you commit another offense, when you go run your criminal record, it will be made available. They will, so that we will know. So that's what I'm saying. You may have been one of those individuals who it's sealed for the general public, but not sealed for law enforcement. And that's what you need to look into specifically. I gave the example maybe before you came in where a young lady tried to get an expungement, and when we looked at her paperwork, her file had been sealed because she had gotten diversion. So there was nothing to expunge.
That's what I was told.
Yes, and so you may need to check with an attorney to have them assist you go forward so that if it was sealed, it's not being held against you in that regard. Yes, sir.
That name again was that Gary Jones?
The ones that I'm aware of through counsel is Attorney Gary Jones. He's in Detroit. Delisha Coleman. She's in Detroit. And Terry Johnson. He's in Inkster.
Okay.
Those are the ones that the attorneys have made me aware of.
I
Yes,
had a quick question as far as the people who just say right now I got a job coming next week. I got one coming next week, and I have to admit something because we've had situations. I'm a rep across the street, work for this gentleman, and we've had situations where they were supposed to be sealed, but somebody didn't take care of the business.
Yep.
And now we're fighting to get people back because now they've had them, you know, of course, sealed. But then once the employer hears this, sometimes they can become biased, even though they're not, quote unquote, saying they are. What do we do in situations like that? Because we're going through things right now where they're doing these background checks, and I know sometimes they're not taking care of the business or on a fast enough basis downtown right now, maybe in getting those things sealed. What do we do in instances like that where once they get, I mean, you know what I mean? It's kind of like,
Or what can we do?
what can we do? I mean, should we go see the judge right now, or like if I got
if the
something
record
Thursday?
has been sealed, the court speaks through its written record. So in the court file, there is an order that says that the conviction was either set aside under diversion or under hide-up, or you need to get that file, you need to get a copy of that order, you can get the order stamped, you can get the order with an impressed seal upon it, and you can present that. Also, and I'm going to give you these too. Don't leave yet. That's why I never tell them until the end, because they're supposed to get up and leave. I'm active with a lot of organizations, but I'm active with Rainbow Push. And a couple months ago, Rainbow Push, in one of their newsletters, was talking about the fact that there's supposed to be a federal law that stops employers from using your felony conviction against you except for specific cases. We're not going to have sex offenders teaching children. Okay, sorry, whatever. But as a general rule, so if you are active or if you have a representative that deals with the federal lobbying or the federal system, you may want to discuss with them how this is impacting your membership. My understanding is that Rainbow Push is talking with the Department of Justice, they're contemplating filing a lawsuit on the issue because they were saying that today Dr. Martin Luther King couldn't get a job because he's got an arrest and a conviction in his record. And that was one of the examples that they pointed to. I'm going to pass these out too, and quite frankly, I got this from the UAW. Okay? I just probably took more copies than they intended me to, but I want to give these out. In the state of Michigan, because it's not true in at least half the states in the country, but in the state of Michigan, convicted felons can still vote. All right? You can still vote. Now, you can't vote if you're in prison. If you are in jail waiting sentencing, you can vote absentee. But use it or lose it. Because all it takes is the legislature and the executive in Lansing to decide that they're going to change the law where convicted felons can't vote. Then you won't even have the clock to get it changed back again.
No, Republicans are trying to do that right now, excuse my language.
Use it or lose it. Educate your family members. I'm going to give you this flyer. I'm going to pass these out. Post them. Encourage folks to go to the polls. Because everything that is decided ultimately is going to be decided in the legislature and but with the executive branch. You don't go to the forums, you don't go to the polls, no sense complaining. Because you have the power, it's up to you to use it. Any other questions or expansions? Yes, sir.
One more.
And then I'll come back over here.
I had a case where I went to go try to pop up my CCW. I went down to Frank Murphy and I got my paperwork and pulled up, you know, the charges I had on there. Now, what happened is they actually mixed the charges up to whereas, like, I had like a lesser crime that I settled for, and the bigger crime had got, you know, dismissed for giving up pre-trial. But when I went down there, on the paperwork they had it, the lesser charges done, and the more serious offense was left on there. I was told the opposite.
Again, what you may need to do is you may have to have the file pulled. The court speaks through its written record. So, what does the paperwork reflect? If you believe the paperwork is wrong, then you need to go into the file, find out who the court reporter was, and order a copy of the transcript to see, because the court report is supposed to be taking down what is said as it's being said. So if the paperwork wasn't filled out in keeping with what's in the transcript trumps.
And they might make a mistake.
Exactly.
They might.
Yeah.
They might.
It's been known to happen.
But the reporter is accurate.
You're dealing with human beings. Anytime you deal with human beings, there's going to be a mistake. Human beings are not.
The court reporter?
The court reporter who is in that courtroom that day will be listed in the court file. And what's on the printout may not be what's on the paperwork. So you actually look at the file first, look at the exact order of conviction in the file first. If that's straight, get a certified copy, move, tell them, go back to the judge, tell them you want it straightened out. If you think that's wrong, then you have to order the transcript. Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. I had got a check CCW, and so how did that work? I did 1 year probation. I got my charge paper right here. I did 1 year probation, and it happened in 2008.
So it's been 5 years, but not quite, because the 5 years be 13.
13.
But what you need to be doing in this next year is volunteering somewhere. All right, so that when the time comes when you can make application, you can say, well, I've been working here for the last 18 months to 2 years. All right, so, and that's part of what we're trying to educate people about, is that if your 5 years hasn't gotten here yet, that means you got time to satisfy those requirements that you can show that you have given back to society. Find some organization to work with so that you can establish you've given back to society. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I had two misdemeanors. Does that disqualify me?
Not under the new statute. You're not summarily disqualified. All right, because you can't have 2 minor misdemeanors, and might be limited by if they occur before you're 21 or younger. And also, as I said before, you may be able to go back and have one of those maybe reduced to an ordinance violation, because an ordinance violation is not a misdemeanor, just like a misdemeanor is not a felony. So you may want to consult an attorney to see if that's one of those where you may be able to go back and have it modified. And then misdemeanor, make sure if you're reporting, people, even though I understand, thank you, I understand, everybody's running.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Ron, so thank you. People, I had a fellow who thought he had a felony, and it wasn't a felony, it was a misdemeanor. Quit checking the box saying you got a felony. That's not a felony, it's a misdemeanor. Also, there are what we call high misdemeanors. There are 2-year misdemeanors. So make sure that you know whether it's considered to be a felony or a misdemeanor. I got folks running around checking all boxes. Yeah, I got a felony. You don't even have a felony.
So will mine fall up under felony?
Yours isn't a felony, and it's an attempt. It is expunged.
What about VGO? Violation of the gun ordinance. And this was like when 30 years ago.
Ordinance, it may be a ordinance violation. Yeah. I mean, you're not prohibited from being expunged. Okay, just off the top with the offense itself. But you may not be, as from what you're telling me, don't report it as a felony.
It's not a felony. It's an ordinance violation. Ordinance violations are not felonies.
Ordinance violations are not felonies. Misdemeanors are not felonies. And so you need to know. You need to know how your offense is classified. You be checking off the box all these years. You didn't even have a felony.
Right.
Could have had a job.
Yes. Question.
So I've been checking mine as a felony. Yeah.
It is a felony. Its attempt is a felony, but it is expunged.
Yeah, I was charged with. When I was charged in Highland Park back in '76, they said it was attempt theft of a car battery. How do that constitute as a felony anyway? About car battery?
Oh, I do know all of that adopted. Okay, and receiving and concealing stolen property, even attempt, that just means it went down from 5 years to 2.5. That's a felony.
Is it? Well, I only did 16, 17 days in Highland Park jail. They turned me. I was really railroad because.
And then the question, because if they reduced it, your offense may be been reduced to a misdemeanor in Highland Park. Have you gone to the Highland Park District Court to see if they have a file?
They told me they don't keep records that long. Told me they sent me IRADs all over the place. I even have a letter from.
You may need to consult an attorney for further assistance, because they may have reduced yours down to misdemeanor theft of under $100 in value, so it may not even have rose to a felony, depending upon how the prosecutor at the time charged. And each case is unique. Each case is different. Yes, sir.
Okay, I applied for a CCW, and they mailed me back. They denied it with a misdemeanor assault of 2007, which charges was not pressed against me. I was released, and this still showing on my record. But when I do a public check, nothing shows on. So would that be considered as sealed?
If you were never charged,
I was never convicted or charged.
Okay, there's a difference between not being convicted and not being charged.
Okay.
Okay. I have been told recently that some folks are running into employment problems simply because they were arrested. Just arrested. All right, and that again goes back to lobbying, talking to your state senators, your U.S. senators, your U.S. Congress people, and asking them about the federal law in that regard. It's happening, and part of the reason why it's happening is because the computer age makes more information more readily available. All right? But in terms of, it needs to be clarified if you were never charged. There should be able to get a printout.
Yeah, that's why I said get a copy of the Register of Actions so you can see everything that has happened. And the lawyer that you hire or just bring to someone to look at it, they can tell you what exactly happened.
Is that on the form you just passed? The one you passed out?
No. That's when she was saying go down to the courthouse and ask for to Frank Murphy and ask for your certified record and also ask for a copy of the Register of Action.
Well, the certified record of conviction is for the one felony that you're trying to expunge. Then I want you to get the Register of Action because you might be thinking that you only have one or you have one. The Register of Action will tell me what you really do have.
Or what's really on your record, even if it's not you.
That's right. So you might say, I had a B&E, and I want a certified conviction, record of the conviction for the B&E. And they're going to say, okay, but when I look at the Register of Action, you might have something different, or you might have an additional one that would disqualify you. The Register of Action gives us the history of everything that has happened.
Is it expensive for a lawyer to do this? How many ways?
You should. Well, you know.
Well, the more you do, the less they have to do. So if you go get the fingerprints, they don't have to go get the fingerprints. If you go get the Register of Action, they don't have to go get it. If you get the certified record, they don't have to go get it. The more you do, the less they have to do. So do your part.
How long the fingerprints good for?
How long?
Good
for?
Permanently, once you get it? Because I pulled mine in like 10 years ago.
Oh, no,
you got to go back.
Got to go back?
Yeah.
So in my case, where they can't find a record, how can I go to the court to that?
You need to get a lawyer. Because we can't tell you right here today exactly what you need to do. The lawyer's going to have to get in there and figure out what's going on.
So is that expensive? That's what I'm asking.
Let me just say this. Everybody's different. But you probably shouldn't be paying average is $500. Depending upon how complicated your situation is, it can go up from $500 and up. Every lawyer is different. So just know $500
and most of them will do a payment plan. Most of them will do a payment plan. All right? Sir, you had a question?
Yeah, the registered action sheet, if you go to the district court, will that do a nationwide registered action? Just that one?
Just for that court. Because the reason why I'm asking you to get that register of action is because you're telling me that I got one conviction in 44 district court. So you're going to go to 44 district court to get your certified conviction. But I also want to know everything that happened in 44 district court. Did you, because that'll tell me if you got diversion, if you got probation, did you complete it, were you violated? It'll give me, the lawyer, the history. Because you might be seeing one thing because you think it's one thing, but that register of action will tell me what actually happened legally. You follow me? It gives me the legal terminology. That's what it does.
Sir?
In my case, I'm one of those people who, my situation was back in the 90s. Early 90s, so I'm really not sure. So it sounds like what you're saying. The first thing I need to do is go down to Frank Murphy and get a certified record and
register back. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That's the first thing you need to do.
Yeah,
Okay.
one more question. I'm out of here.
That's all right.
I was to the attorney. Now you saying about that driver responsibility fee. What they gonna actually like dismiss that driver responsibility fee stuff?
Right, it's been changed effective October 21st. I don't have all the details, but that's not going to stop you from getting a record set aside, and the fees are going to change too. All those fees are going to change as of October 21st.
I thought they were supposed to get away with it because they said we might charge you twice for the same offense.
That's effective October 21st. You're probably right. I don't know all the details, but it's from October 21st of this year. That's when it starts.
We did do 2 other forms, and I'm sure the attorneys, even though they're campaigning, I drag them out here. We've done one on the changes in the driver's responsibility law and legal ways that you can ease the burden, I'll put it that way, of the driver's responsibility fees that you may now own. Okay, and we did one on child support. And I learned a lot at that, but I didn't even know. We didn't get a lot of folks show up for the child support one. I don't know what the issue is. I got some information out in the car. I hold on to everything. if you are interested in having forums on those issues, you know, we need a place because everybody's volunteering. None of it, you know, so we can't rent a hall. And I can get the attorneys to come in to talk about how to ease the burden of the driver's responsibility obligations and some things you can do about child support. And there are some things you can do about child support.
We have one more question.
I have a case that's over 20 years old, and it's a possession case. But on the charge, they put it down as 2 instead of 1 offense, so they're saying that it can't be expunged. Now, the case was set aside by a judge, but it's still showing on my record.
You need to, once again, you need to get the register of action. And if you dispute what's in it, you need to ask to see the actual court file. And then you need to see what's on the written order of conviction to see if that's the same of what's in the computer. And if the written order of conviction is not what you believe it should be, you need to find out, looking in the file, who the court reporter was, and see about ordering a copy of the transcript. For the day that you took the plea, that's what you want. You don't want the transcript from every word that was ever spoken on the case. You want the date that the plea was taken, and because that's the day that the judge entered you guilty of. Right? So if you look at the actual court order, if the order, you don't think the order is right, then you look for the name of the court reporter, it's in the file, and you see about trying to order a copy of the transcript and see what the transcript says. Got the transcript?
It's saying it was 1 charge, but they put it down to 2. So they're saying it can't be expunged because it's 2.
Did you get the transcript? You got the court order?
I got the, what you say?
You got the register of action. That means somebody looked at the paperwork and put it into the computer. That doesn't mean they put it in there right.
Okay.
You need the court order that the judge signed. And if the court order that the judge signed, and somebody filled that in too, you think that was filled in wrong, then you go and you get the transcript of the court reporter who was sitting there taking out everything being said when it was being said. All right? Because that's live and in living color. And that's as good as it gets. Anybody else? Well, thank you for coming out. Thank you for coming out. We did try to do one on a Saturday morning. We were getting, you know, most of an afternoon shift can't get to the ones after work. So if there's anything else, we do have copies of the email address where people can download the form because, you know, like I said, somebody's paying for these and free. So if you know someone that you want to share the information with, give them the email address and they can go on the computer and pull up the information.